teaching everyone to learn. Through science, health, and technology, we will share our expertise. By promoting knowledge and policies, we can build a better world. Let us take in a life filled with happiness and dreams. Here at SEAMEO, building the future is our legacy. We'll achieve our goals through partnership, creating opportunities. By working hand in hand, we can accomplish all our dreams. For a better quality of life is now within our reach. Let us take a stand for our visions of growth, making future plans for the people to grow in a life filled with happiness and dreams. Here at SEAMEO, building the future is our legacy. Let us take a stand for our visions of growth, making future plans for the people to grow in a life filled with happiness and dreams. Here at SEAMEO, building the future is our legacy. Building the future is our legacy. At SEAMEO,
Building the future is SEAMEO legacy. Thus, we hope this webinar also become one of the SEAMEO legacy. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving to the next agenda, which is the opening speech delivered by Professor Muhtaruddin Mansur, MD, PhD, as the Director of SEAMEO RECFON. Professor Mansur, time is yours.
Thank you, Ibu Qonita. Good afternoon to all. Welcome to webinar series on healthier food choices, strategies for prevention of double burden of malnutrition in Southeast Asian region. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In recent years, we acknowledge the complication of global nutritional problems. A large proportion of low and middle-income countries face the double burden of malnutrition, now also called a triple burden, showing the coexistence of undernutrition, micronutrient deficiencies, and overweight, obesity, and other diet-related non-communicable diseases. The reports and studies show that among Southeast Asian under 5 children, the prevalence of stunting is almost 25%, which is higher than the global average of 21.3%. The prevalence of wasting is around 8%, which is also higher than the global average. The average prevalence of overweight is around 7.5%. Anemia is still prevalent in Southeast Asia. It is estimated 28.1% of women of reproductive age. The iron deficiency appears not to be prevalent in Cambodia, and less prevalent than taught in Vietnam and Indonesia. The other macronutrient deficiencies are vitamin A, zinc, and thiamine deficiency in some countries, such as Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. This calls for a holistic approach, including innovation in informing the public regarding healthier food options, guiding consumers toward more healthful food choices may help address the high prevalence of poor dietary quality and diet-related diseases. Nutrient profiling is a scientific method for assessing the nutritional quality of food and beverage items. National authorities can use it to promote public health dietary goals through the translation of nutrient profiling system into food labeling. Public education and awareness on food and nutrition is one of the mandates of SEAMEO RECFON. During the celebration of our 10th anniversary this year, Prof. Leila, we are now 10 years old already. We are proud to announce the webinar series on healthier food choices as a collaborative effort with Southeast Asian Nutrition Leadership Program, CNLP alumni, and Choices International Foundation. Thank you very much. We extend our most gratefulness for the speaker, Dr. Snigdha Misra, Mr. Hector Magnalang, as a representative of Choices International, and Mrs. Yusra Egayanti, Sarjana Science Apotheker, Magister Pharmacy from National Food and Drug Agency of Indonesia, or BPOM. The moderator, Professor Dr. Leila, Southern Africa, and of course, Master of Ceremony, Mrs. Qonita Rachmah, Magister Science, who are our all CNLP alumni for the support in this webinar. I only welcome around 250 registrants, more than 250, I think, from countries in Southeast Asia, and wish you a great experience exchange in this webinar session. We hope that the knowledge you gain from this webinar will further be shared to your colleges and could be implemented in your professional work. I thank the committee, Ibu Yudi, for their hard work, and the Ministry of Education and Culture of Indonesia for continuously providing support for the SEAMEO RECFON activities, including this webinar. I wish you all a very successful session. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Prof. Mansur, for the opening remarks. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we go to the core of the webinar, let me read out the rules of today's webinar. So, first thing first, participants are expected to enter to the YouTube channel of the SEAMEO RECFON, and we recommend you to use headphones to make the voice clearer. At the end of the session, participants also expected to fill out the evaluation form as the proof of attendance. The certificate will be given to the participants who completed the evaluation form. Next, The link to the evaluation form will be shared at the prior of the end of the session, so please wait. The certificate will be available 2 weeks after the webinar. For further information, please kindly visit SEAMEO RECFON website and also their social media. Last but not least, be sure to subscribe and like SEAMEO RECFON YouTube channel and follow our other social media accounts. So ladies and gentlemen, to start today's webinar, I would like to introduce you to our moderators today, Dr. Leila S.Si. Allow me to read her bibliography. So Dr. Leila S.Si. is a registered nutritionist dietitian by profession, a full professor and also former director of the Institute of Human Nutrition and Food, colleague of Human Ecology, University of the Philippines, Los Baños. In 2015, she completed her doctorate of nutrition degree at the Southeast Asia Ministry of Education Organization, SEAMEO RECFON, and a study program on nutrition, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Indonesia. She has been teaching related course on public health nutrition since 2002, and her past research works and journal publication in line with multi-level analysis, cost analysis, impact evaluation, and many others related with the nutrition. She also served as organizer, team leader, or resource person in numerous training workshops, particularly those related to the nutrition program management and other training. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Leila S.Si.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar series on healthier food choices. So I'm honored and I'm delighted to be part of this webinar series. This is the first of the two series in celebration of the 10th year anniversary of SEAMEO RECFON. So SEAMEO RECFON, happy 10th year anniversary. I think SEAMEO RECFON is my home in Indonesia, actually. Okay, so for today, let me share first the in terms of the question. If you have any question to our speakers, so there will be a link for you to click, and you have to write your questions on those link. Okay, so for today, this webinar series, as I've mentioned, is entitled Healthier Food Choices. And our aim for this webinar series is to share updates on research and experiences from Southeast Asian region on nutrient profiling, front of pack labeling or FOPL, and health claims. And the second objective is to provide a forum for an interdisciplinary discussion on these relevant issues on food choices. Okay, so as mentioned by our MC, the theme for this first webinar is strategies for prevention of double burden of malnutrition in Southeast Asian region. So are you ready? Okay, let's get started. So I will now call our first speaker. Our first speaker is the Senior Advisor to the Choices Regional Secretariat of East Asia, covering China and ASEAN region. She collaborates closely with the Choices Regional Secretary for East Asia and East Asia Industry Support Group. Our distinguished speaker has a master's degree in food science and nutrition and awarded PhD in nutrition from India. She has a vast experience in academia spanning for more than 28 years. Her research interests are in public health nutrition, inclusive of maternal and child health and geriatric nutrition. She is engaged in active research and supervised many undergraduates and postgraduate students. She has worked with the food industry to improve the health of the community. She is committed to a strong foundation for a transformational change in the health of the community through professional and personal rapport. Lastly, she is currently an associate professor in nutrition and dietetics, International Medical University in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, to discuss the strategies for prevention of double burden of malnutrition, or DBM, impact of front of pack labeling. Let us all welcome Dr. Snigdha Misra. Dr. Misra, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you very much for the kind words of introduction. Can I be allowed? Yes, I can share my screen. Can you see my screen? Is my screen visible?
Yes, Dr. Misra, yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much to SEAMEO RECFON, and a very warm welcome to all of you. Wishing SEAMEO RECFON a very happy 10th anniversary, and we are proud and privileged to be a part of your celebrations from as Choices International Foundation. Now, as mentioned by Madam MC as well as the moderator, we are embarking on this webinar series, and the first of this is on the strategies on the healthier food choices. And today's topic is on strategies for prevention of double burden of malnutrition, the impact of front of pack labeling. This is the outline of my presentation. We are all very much familiar about double burden of malnutrition. The coexistence of nutritional deficiencies and overweight or obesity, which is associated by the diet-related non-communicable diseases, this constitutes the double burden of malnutrition, which is observed not only within the communities, but also within the households as well as in the amongst the individuals. In the high-income countries where overweight and obesity affects more than half the population, it is otherwise in the low-income and middle-income countries. In the low-income countries, food insecurity among people with lower income manifests as low-quality diets are often dominated by high consumption of foods, which are mostly in the form of snacks and beverages, which are energy-dense, sugar, and contain excessive amounts of sugar, fat, as well as salt. On the other extreme, the low-income countries are also still struggling with the persistent problems of maternal undernutrition, child stunting, and wasting, as well as widespread micronutrient deficiencies, which are having a rapid rise in overweight and obesity, even at the lower levels of the national income. Now, this takes us to think, how can we improve the diets across, not only in the higher income countries, but more so in the low middle income countries. COVID, even before the existence of the pandemic, there was double burden of malnutrition, which was already in existence. And now the situation is much worse because of the pandemic, which has led to a lot of restrictions in buying the foods, as well as accessibility to food, especially amongst the low and middle income countries.
Dr. Misra, yes. I think your presentation is presented in such a way that your notes are seen. Can you change your profile of presentation?
Okay, 1 second again. Is it better now? Are you able to see now?
Not yet, Dr. Misra, not yet.
Not yet, is it? Okay, let me just check again. Is it visible now?
Yes, it's visible now. You can.
Okay.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, thank you. So in this context, there was a need to promote the healthier diets, and this comes from none other than WHO. So WHO mandates a comprehensive policy in order to promote healthier diets, in order to prevent not only undernutrition, but also to prevent the diet-related non-communicable diseases. It recommends the governments to implement the front of pack label in the form of nutrition labels. As we all know that the front of pack label is simple and is often a graphical representation which can give you a glance of the information that is which speaks about the nutritional quality, and also can give you an idea for those who are unable to translate this information whether the food is a healthier choice with a positive logo. So the public health strategies by WHO is to improve the dietary behaviors and prevent obesity and nutrition-related diseases. The implementation of this front of pack labels has actually been done across many countries in the world because in order to encourage healthier food choices. It is not only for the consumer at the individual level, but also to promote food reformulation by the food industries. In order to address this, double duty actions which help to approach double burden of malnutrition in a holistic approach. Double duty actions are nothing but interventions and programs or policies which simultaneously act upon preventing overweight and obesity, along with reduction of the both nutritional deficiencies leading to underweight, wasting, stunting, as well as micronutrient deficiencies. And these double duty actions can be addressed through several drivers, which are health services, social safety nets, educational settings, as well as agricultural food systems. This can lead to interconnected common drivers, which could be early life nutrition affecting diet quality, food environments, and socioeconomic factors. Our interest in this session is more focused towards diet quality and changing the food environment. All these interconnected drivers do give opportunities for a double impact. And as I mentioned earlier, diet quality and food environments can affect all people at all stages of their lifespan, making healthy diets available, affordable, as well as appealing. And this could be a first step forward towards lowering all forms of malnutrition across the lifespan. So what are the key messages of the double duty actions? The first message is to address the spectrum on both sides, the undernutrition as well as overweight and obesity, which has been growing at a much faster pace as anticipated. The programs which are currently existing or which has been designed were looking at one aspect of the malnutrition, but somewhere while addressing undernutrition, they have unintentionally increased risks of obesity as well as diet-related non-communicable diseases. And this was more so in the low and middle-income countries where the food environments are undergoing a rapid shift. Hence, to address this undernutrition exclusively, such kind of policies may not have been successful in the past. So this brings us to what is the rationale of having a double duty action. The double duty action can address all forms of malnutrition, and they can address this through shared common drivers which can be leveraged, giving a double impact. And these drivers include early life in nutrition, diet diversity, food environments, as well as socioeconomic factors. This brings us to the question that the driver of food environment, which is also a driver, comprises of the foods that have been locally produced and especially in terms of processed foods. So how does front of pack labeling address the issue of food environment? We all know that front of pack labeling refers to the nutrition labeling systems which are presented on the front of food packages. This can be applied across packaged retail food supply also. It comprises an underpinning nutrient profiling model which can detect whether the product is healthy or it is healthier in that particular product category. And this can be represented in the form of graphic information, which is easier for the consumer to decipher and make an informed choice. To make this more attractive, a detailed nutrient declaration also can be provided on the food packaging. Hence, the front of pack labeling is an important policy tool for all countries because it enables or empowers the consumers to make informed, healthier choices. Various countries have already developed the front of pack labeling system, and currently Codex is also undertaking its role on the front of pack labeling. An effective nutrition labeling is said to be more appreciated when it includes simple to use front of pack labeling in order to address growing global concerns of unhealthy diets. What's the aim of front of pack labeling? It's convenient, relevant, and readily understood nutrition information is projected on the food pack. It gives a guidance on the food packs and assists all consumers, and this is across all ages or stages of the lifespan. Consumers can make informed food choices. For the industry or the food manufacturers, it can stimulate favorable compositional changes. In other words, it can help them or drive them to reformulate their food products. And this is specifically applicable to packaged, manufactured, or processed foods that needs to carry a mandatory nutrient declaration. However, some foods have to be excluded from the FOPL. They are the packaged foods specially intended for the use by infants, young children, and follow-up formula, and also for other health conditions. The packaged foods that are exempt from displaying a nutrient declaration should not display a front of pack label. And this also could include foods which contributes very low nutritional contribution, for example, herbs, spices, tea, coffee, and condiments. As these food items have a minimal nutritional contribution to the diet, it could be in form of either the composition or in the amounts that they are normally consumed. Hence, front of pack labeling would not assist the consumer if it in making better food choices. The food front of pack labeling should be excluded from other non-basic food items like the alcoholic beverages. So what's the impact? Nutritional labeling, we know, promotes healthier diets and also enables the policymakers to determine an appropriate label format which the consumers can readily understand and use. Evidence has shown that interpretive elements have shown a better judgment or are mostly recommended. This includes nutrient-specific interpretive labels and multiple types of summary indicator labels as well. This is an example which shows the different types of labels and the positive front of pack labeling as well. So formats with interpretive elements that show judgment or recommendation are the most acceptable, as it is very well accepted by the consumers. Moving on to the double duty actions. Now, one of the double duty actions, as we discussed earlier, was on food environments, and the interventions can be delivered through the different drivers. So food systems and food environments are the key drivers in our context of this webinar. While we discuss about food systems and food environments, we also discussed previously that each of these drivers are interrelated and interdependent. So nutrient profiling supports these double duty actions. There are about 10 double duty actions, out of which 3, 6, 7, and 10 double duty action can be linked with nutrient profiling in order to address the healthy and less healthy foods, beverages, and snacks. Let's take the example of the third double duty action, which states, redesign guidance for complementary feeding practices and related indicators. In this case, nutrient profiling specifically can be used for young children. Similarly, number 7, which states that redesign school feeding programs and devise new nutritional guidelines for food in and around educational institutions. In this case also, nutrient profiling can be used in order to provide guidelines for school feeding programs and also those foods which are delivered from the commercial sector. So nutrient profiling does not have to be only applicable to the front of pack labeling system, but also has multiple other uses and applications. The development of the choices criteria for nutrient profiling was based on WHO FAO dietary guidelines and the WHO recommendations for the prevention of NCDs. This criteria is an international food composition database was developed to describe healthiest products across all product groups or product categories. The criteria can be applied as a tool to improve the population's diet, also to identify the healthiest products within a food category. For example, the 20% best in the 20% best in the category of basic foods and 10% best in the non-basic food categories. This also addresses the SDGs with specific goals to prevention of NCDs, other forms of malnutrition, as well as collaboration and stakeholders. The choices nutrient profiling or the choices criteria can be adapted at national levels, and the purpose of developing such a nutrient profiling is to address the food system actions. So these food system actions can be based on consumer guidance and education, school meals and education, reformulation, front of pack labeling, responsible marketing to children, procurement standards, financial incentives, standard for claims and fortification, partnerships with industry, as well as in research to develop, implement, and also assess the impact of such kind of systems in the community. Some examples on the uses of the choices criteria is to benchmark for the national front of pack label systems. It also drives the reformulation agenda. It is helpful for creating the health policies, designing the health policies, or for financial incentives, nutrition communication to consumers, and responsible food marketing. The choices criteria has also derived its cutoffs for the critical nutrients like saturated fatty acids, sugar, trans fatty acids, sodium, energy, as well as dietary fiber. And the criteria is being revised once in every 4 years. How has this criteria helped in East Asia? The choices criteria has supported the 5 countries in East Asia, namely in Singapore, it has proposed the round table, and the choices supported countries that started the East Asia round table. In Thailand, they launched the logo in 2016 using the choices criteria. Now they are they're using the criteria for more than 500 products. Malaysia, using the choices criteria, launched their own Healthier Choice logo in 2017, which includes the nutrients and the products, number of products which has been addressed in this under the Healthier Choice logo comes to 366, and more are coming on board. Brunei launched its logo in 2017 as a nutrition policy and used in limiting promotion to children. Indonesia has started the front of pack logo using the choices criteria with processed noodles, beverages, and pasta. The other countries like China and Vietnam, China has developed their criteria based on the choices criteria, and Vietnam is considering the use of the criteria for their front of pack labeling. Moving forward, we from the choices are planning to develop a framework, especially for East Asia. We are exploring a methodology to align the criteria for amongst all the countries in East Asia. We are also planning to establish a coherence of criteria, and this can be done by identifying the product groups with the highest coherence, collapse or reduce the number of product groups, identify each of the nutrients, it could be positive nutrients as well, and their cutoff values for consideration depending upon the country's requirement of these nutrients. So and also include positive nutrients to address micronutrient deficiency, adopt a shared methodology for the revision of criteria in the respective region, discuss on differences in the criteria and to develop a coherence in the Healthier Choice logo criteria in this entire region, and also develop a framework for criteria revision, which will enable all the countries to encourage mutual recognition and promote cross-border trade. In Indonesia, we propose to provide technical assistance on government initiatives on food-based approaches to address double burden of malnutrition along with the non-communicable diseases. We are able to provide technical assistance in the development of healthier food choices with the industry, government, NGOs collaboration using the choices criteria as a guide. We can assist in consumer education on healthier food choices and also assist the industry in order to use the choices database to assess their own products and reformulate for a greater cost. So to summarize, all the countries are currently fighting with the emerging epidemic of the diet-related non-communicable diseases along with the double burden of malnutrition, and more so with the paradigm shift in the food environment. Nutritional labeling is a policy tool which can be used by the governments in order to guide consumers. Nutrient declarations provide essential information about the nutrient composition of the foods. A single system could be developed to improve the impact of the front of pack labeling system as suggested by WHO. However, front of pack labeling alone is not sufficient to combat double burden of malnutrition. It should be used in tandem with other strategies to combat DBM. Choices nutrient profiling is not restricted to the front of pack labeling alone, but can also be used for the other double duty actions. And this criteria is well adaptable across all national and regional criteria. That's all. Thank you very much. Looking forward for your questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Misra, for a very comprehensive discussion on choices, FOPL, what else? We have the NP, And this is my takeaway message. I think front of pack labeling is an important policy in a country to carry out nutrient declaration, right, Dr. Misra? And then it should be in tandem, okay, with other approaches to solve the problem of the double burden of malnutrition. I know you have questions to Dr. Misra, so please write your questions in the following link of Google Form. So that's http deadbeat.ly Q&A underscore webinar HFC1. I think our secretariat will send it to the YouTube page where you can click the link. Okay, the questions or opinion should be brief and clear. Okay, so let's now proceed to our next discussion of our topic. Our second speaker is a chemist by training from the University of the Philippines and is appointed as the Philippine country representative of Choices International. His earlier work was on various research settings and as chief chemist of the Food Development Center under the Department of Agriculture. In 1992, he was trained on food fortification in Europe and in United States while developing the first Philippine food fortification plan. In 1994, he started working as a full-time consultant, working with various development partners such as UNICEF, USAID, and many others. In 2010, the Philippine Association of Nutrition Incorporated recognized his achievement in food fortification as a fellow on community nutrition due to the significant decreases in vitamin A deficiency disorder and anemia in the Philippines. His experiences in bridging various stakeholders in implementing the food fortification program enables him to continue to establish a similar partnership towards the Choices agenda for the Philippines. To talk about Nutrition Plan of Action 2018 to 2030 in Southeast Asia, application of nutrient profiling, let us all welcome Mr. Hector Magnalang. Sir?
Thank you, Dr. Africa. And I'll just first share my screen. Where it is. Excuse me.
Hector, do you want me to share the screen for you?
I lost it. Okay. Just to earlier, I had it earlier.
It's okay. Let me try to share the screen now.
Okay.
Give me a moment, please.
Okay, slideshow. So first of all, I'd like to thank SEAMEO, RECFON, for giving me this opportunity to be part of your 10th anniversary and talk about the ASEAN Nutrient Plan of Action for 2018 to 2013 and the application of the various activities identified in the plan related to nutrient profiling. So next slide. This is the presentation highlights. First, I'll show you the background on malnutrition in ASEAN countries, as well as give a short review of what is nutrient profiling, background on the ASEAN Leaders Declaration on ending all forms of malnutrition, which became the basis for the ASEAN Nutrition Plan of Action for 2018, 2030, as well as the outcome indicators. They have 5 strategic thrusts of this nutrition plan of action, and there are 64 activities, total activities of this plan, and I will just discuss mainly on those that are related to the need for a nutrient profiling system. And then the choices criteria has been discussed by Snigdha, so I'll just skip on that. And so the proposed actions for various sectors in the application of nutrient profiling. So next slide. So first, I'd like to talk about malnutrition in ASEAN countries. This was based on a policy note of WHO as requested by the Thailand when they were the chair of the ASEAN in 2019. So for some ASEAN member states, undernutrition results in annual losses between 2.4% to 4.4% of GDP. That's undernutrition. So, and then in the last 35 years, according to this document, obesity prevalence across ASEAN increased 7-fold, most rapidly in Cambodia, Indonesia, and Laos, where obesity rates have risen more than 10-fold. And now, and then childhood overweight and obesity is likewise a growing problem, especially in Brunei, Malaysia, and Thailand, where childhood and overweight prevalence exceeds 25%. So next. So in that document, the WHO made a classification of the ASEAN countries, just like a color-coded classification of where the countries stand related to their nutritional problems, particularly on the double burden of malnutrition. Well, Malaysia and Brunei, Darussalam, were classified in the red zone of their classification because they're exhibiting a high double burden of malnutrition, while those in the orange area, most countries are there, namely the Philippines, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Indonesia, and Vietnam, have very high stunting rates, but with low but rising prevalence of adult overweight. And then in the amber region, Thailand and Singapore have the high levels of adult overweight and low child stunting, classified as medium double burden of malnutrition. Well, all of us need to be in the green category, and as of now, none of the ASEAN countries are experiencing neither this challenge, that is to belong to the green category. So we need to be in that category, hopefully by 2013, as this plan unfolds or is being implemented. So next. I'd like to go now to what the short definition of nutrient profiling, which is the science of classifying or ranking foods according to their nutritional composition for reasons related to preventing a disease and promoting health. So it is more, as Snigdha has explained, more setting more criteria related to foods that could be considered those that promote or provides that could prevent diseases and promote healthy food choices. So next, the uses of these are as follows: marketing of foods to children for health and nutrition claims, particularly, let's say, from the industry, saying low in fat, low in sugar, low in salt. So product labeling and logos, as already explained earlier, information and education on healthy foods as part of our social marketing campaign on nutrition, as part of dietary diversification, and then the provision of foods in public institutions, like in feeding programs, as well as part of disaster response. And the use of economics tools to orient food consumption, examples of which are taxation or incentives to industry who produces or reformulate to be able to be considered as uh, healthy foods, or taxation to those high in let's say sugars, as we have it here in the Philippines. So next, what is now, I'll go to the related to the plan of action. In on November 2017, that was in Manila, there was an ASEAN Leaders Declaration document on ending all forms of malnutrition that was adopted by all the leaders of the ASEAN countries. It is the highest level of political commitment to address malnutrition in the region. It affirms the global commitment to ending malnutrition based on the following: the UN Decade of Action on Nutrition 2016 to 2025, the Rome Declaration on Nutrition and Framework for Action, and most especially on UN Sustainable Development Goal 2 to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. The declaration became the basis for the development of the ASEAN Nutrition Plan of Action for 2018 to 2030. Next. So, ASEAN Leaders Declaration in ending all forms, these are the goal. The goal is to end all forms of malnutrition, particularly among the most vulnerable, poor, and disadvantaged groups of ASEAN, and then with the following strategic thrust, namely to scale up delivery of nutrition services, ensure policy support and coherence among the various sectors, namely to adopt coherent policies, interventions, and nutrition enhancing actions to have a safeguard against conflict of interest, particularly the engagement business, resource mobilization, and capacity building for nutrition stakeholders. And I'm sure the SEAMEO RECFON could be part of this, and monitoring and evaluation through ASEAN nutrition. All of these activities under the strategic plus, there are 64 of them. So it's a really big document, hopefully, that could address the nutrition problem. Next. What are the outcome indicators by 2030, which is based on the global nutrition targets and nutrition-related global NCD targets? 40% of reduction in the number of children under 5 years of age who are stunted. So then reduce and maintain childhood wasting to less than 5%. No increase in childhood overweight. 50% reduction in anemia among women of reproductive age. Then 30% reduction in low birth weight. Increase the rate of exclusive breastfeeding rate in the first 6 months to up to at least 50%. No increases in obesity and diabetes, and 30% relative reduction in mean population of salt in salt intake and sugar. So I think all of those in the bold uh, targets are those that require nutrition profiling and the use of the information on nutrition of healthy foods to be able to achieve these targets. Next. First, I'd like to go to strategic thrust number 1, which is scaling up nutrition service delivery. And for this, there are 8 activities. Accelerate evidence base, particularly among the most vulnerable, poor, and disadvantaged groups of ASEAN. Of the 8 activities, I have identified 6 activities that could be able to use nutrient profiling. So the other 2 are the study of the nutritional status of marginalized sectors and develop a model for approaches on child protection. So for the other 6, I'll start with the various next, please. For these are the activities. First is the development of a guideline on maternal nutrition package. Expected outputs and indicators are these guidelines have been developed. The timeline 2021 to 2025, lead country is Indonesia and Laos, and source of support will be from UNICEF and Alive and Thrive. So this is how the plan is being the template choose for this plan. So in my I'm putting in remarks related to the nutrition profiling, and for this it would require nutrition profiling of healthy food choices needed for maternal nutrition as part of the guidelines. Okay. Next. And then second is the development of guidelines on school nutrition packages such as feeding in schools, health promoting school initiatives such as healthy school canteen, and expected output indicators are school children nutrition package guidelines developed, timeline 2021-2025, led by Indonesia and Vietnam, with UNICEF and WFP as the support. So here, nutrient profiling for healthy food choices in school, we not only in school but also in children. Examples in Brunei, where they have developed healthy food choices similar to a stoplight nutrition label that classifies those that are with green, amber, and red. Red cannot be advertised. Green can be advertised. Amber can be advertised with certain restrictions. So they have presented this as an example, and then it's being currently implemented. While the Philippines has also a similar order from the Department of Education for school canteens classifying foods similar to what Brunei has done of red, amber, and red, yellow, and green. Green can be sold in schools. Yellow can be sold twice a week, and then red cannot be sold in school. So that's a use of nutrient profile for the foods identified in their guidelines. Next. Development of guidelines and minimum standards for the protection, promotion, and support breastfeeding and complementary feeding So guidelines and minimum standards for protection, promotion, and support breastfeeding and complementary feeding, including implementation of the code or the breastfeeding code. Lead 21 to 25. Philippines, Malaysia, UNICEF, Alive and Thrive. As explained earlier, nutrient profiling is needed for complementary foods, such as milk, which the choices criteria has included. Choices has a criteria, juices and soups, among others, which are being used as complementary foods to children. Next. And then development of standards for the implementation of integrated management of acute malnutrition. Shall standards develop 2021 to 2025, Philippines and Cambodia lead UNICEF and WFP as support. IMAM includes supplementary feeding and nutrition counseling. So nutrition counseling of what should be the healthy food choices. So that nutrition profiling is used to identify those that should be counseled related to what really are healthy food choices. So next. So development of minimum guidelines for marketing of food and non-alcoholic beverage to children. I give an example of the Brunei um, uh, Brunei law related to that, ASEAN minimum guidelines, but this should be on the ASEAN. What they wanted is ASEAN minimum guidelines for children, and 2021-25, Singapore and Thailand for food, Philippines for beverages, UNICEF and Alive and Thrive. So the initial step requires coherence among ASEAN, and Choices has done a pilot related to this on some of the ASEAN countries with front of pack label, as Snigdha is mentioned. And so with this pilot, we are trying to have a common, or what we consider criteria coherence on breakfast cereals and beverages. Actually, this is just a pilot, and hopefully we could be finished by next month, and a document will be out by June. So on these guidelines. So hopefully this could be the basis for the development of these ASEAN minimum guidelines. Next. Study on social protection for persons with disability in times of climate change, disasters, and other environmental changes, social protection. Anyway, for the nutrition-sensitive indicator, special needs of undernourished population considered in planning disaster preparedness and response. Actually, this should have been done 2019-2020 by Vietnam and Thailand with ACSS, ACDM, and World Bank as support. The study should consider nutrient profiling as part of disaster preparedness and response. So the type of foods that should be distributed as part of disaster response should consider healthy foods where nutrient profiling is considered. Next. So with that, those are the main for strategic trust number 1, where most of the nutrient profiling requirements should be used. No? Next, strategic trust 2, intensify efforts to engage with relevant sectors and stakeholders to address multi-causality of all forms of malnutrition. Actually, strategic trust number 2 is ensuring policy support and coherence among sectors. In here, there are 25 activities, and this includes a summary of which are guidelines on training for nutrition integration in social welfare, education, and agriculture, review of ECCD policies and programs, social protection. I think in this review, nutrient profiling can be considered as part of the ECCD policy in feeding children. Social protection of vulnerable children, preschool system for children with disabilities, ASEAN network of family development. So in the Philippines, we have family development session as part of the conditional cash transfer program. So, and nutrition is part of the subject in this family development session, and the nutrient profiling, healthy food choices should be part of this. Education-related activities, including a joint ASEAN SEAMEO action plan on nutrition initiatives for education sector. I think this is already part of that. This activity is already part of this now. and integration of nutrition in ASEAN work plan on education, agriculture, and farming-related activities such as agricultural products or emergency food packs. I only have two major activities here. First, next. Formulate a standard of procedure for distribution of food in emergency relief. So similar to before, nutrition sensitive indicator standard of procedure on the distribution of food in emergency relief, integrated with nutrition concerns and formulated. So from 2018 to 2022 by the ASEAN Food Security Reserve Board and others. Standard to ensure that only foods passing the criteria for healthy food should be distributed as part of emergency relief. The second is next. The second is the one that really is related to our topic, develop an ASEAN policy on healthy food choices. Food choice, no? Expected output is ASEAN policy on healthy food choice. Nutrition sensitive indicator is as well as ASEAN policy on food production of healthy food choices developed. No, actually, for this activity from 2018 to 2020, there was no identified lead country or source of support. So I think choices could assist in a way in this developing of us. Snigdha, as informed earlier, as part of the choices criteria. Well, a science-based and recognized global nutrition profiling system can be used as reference and adapted to regional and national context. And the choices criteria is an example of this. Hopefully we can do this even with no identified lead country. Next. Then strategic trust 3, increase public and multi-sectoral investment, level of cooperation, improve nutrition and healthy diets, mainly resource mobilization. So it's mainly RIDESHA for development of proposal, development of university, industry, public-private partnership, and increase industry involvement in university curriculum. So not much related to nutrient profiling. Next. Strengthen human and institutional capacities in multi-sectoral planning and evaluation, policy analysis, advocacy, health and nutrition research, nutrition surveillance, and service delivery. So it's more related to capacity building, such as training on nutrition in emergencies. There are 20 activities here. Conduct of ASEAN Children Forum, workshop on child-friendly local governance, capacity building to assist older persons, migrant children, persons with disabilities. Other activities are education-related and leadership training. Next. There's one major activity that could use nutrient profiling, which is the development of guidelines and training package for the prevention and management of overweight and obesity among children in health facilities. So expected output are that the guidelines are developed and timeline is 2021, 2025 for Brunei, Darussalam, Malaysia, and Malaysia, though the funding source is not identified. I think this would require the identification of the criteria for healthy food choices for the guidelines and the training package. I think the choices criteria can be used for this, as explained earlier by Snigdha. And lastly, next, the last is on the monitoring and evaluation through ASEAN Nutrition Surveillance to monitor the progress of the ASEAN Strategic Framework for Nutrition and Action Plan. This includes workshop and development of the ASEAN Nutrition Surveillance Network, preparation of the 2020 ASEAN Food and Nutrition Security Report, standards development, of nutrition indicators and data collection methods, strengthened linkages, and networking on food security information system and nutrition surveillance. So not much related on nutrient profiling. And then for the various sectors, hopefully you can use nutrition profiling. First, in the public sector, can be used to develop policies based on the nutrient profiles of food, such as explained, front of pack label, marketing particularly to children, taxation of use of sugar and salt, feeding programs, social marketing of healthy foods among others. For the food industry sector, the nutrient profiling can be used for the conduct of reformulation of food products to comply with regulations related to nutrient profiling, regulations or promotion of products uh, that are should be considered low or healthy products. For the academe, assist in the conduct of research and developing guidelines related to the implementation of the results of nutrient profiling for use to be considered for healthy food choices. And others, non-government organizations and donors, to support activities on information dissemination that would enable consumers to identify and consume healthy foods. Also, with that, next, I hope that the plan of action really supports the ASEAN theme of one vision, one identity, and one community. So thank you, Les. Thank you very much for your giving time to hear this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Hector, for your analysis, for your deep analysis of the ASEAN Food and Nutrition Plan, and then identifying where nutrition profiling could be integrated or could be implemented. I think it will be good also for the different countries if we could also evaluate which one is implemented or which one is which needs to be reoriented or reprogrammed to be able to adapt this nutrient profiling. Thank you, sir, for your for the presentation. Okay, so we're down to our last speaker. So for this one, this country is specific. So our third speaker is a trained pharmacist from Universitas Andalas, and she completed her master's degree in food technology at IPB University in Bogor. At present, she is the coordinator of the Standardization Substance Group for Special Nutritional Needs, particularly for processed food, the Directorate of Processed Food Standardization, National Food and Drug Agency, or the NFDA of Indonesia. She has been working there since 1998 to share nutrient profiling, the experiences from Indonesia. Let us all welcome Ms. Yusra Egayanti, S.Si, APT, MP. Ms. Rusia?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Leila, for your nice introduction. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. First of all, let me thank you, SEAMEO RECFON, for being BPOM or Indonesia FDA to be share with you about our current effort to develop nutrient profiling as well as regulation on nutrition labeling in Indonesia. Let me share screen. Yes. Okay, as explained by Dr. Leila, moderator, I will explain or share about our work to develop a nutrient profiling in Indonesia. My presentation divided into 3 parts. The first one about the introduction. The second is about our current regulation and nutrition information panel, as well as reform of PAC. And I also share with you about our development on nutrient profiling and FOP in Indonesia. I think the first and the second already addressed, and also already addressed by the director of SEAMEO, that why we are talking about front of pack, why we are talking about the healthier choice, due to we facing with the same problem, health problem. For example, on NCDs and also malnutrition problem. It is also happened in Indonesia. As you see on the screen, the probability premature death in Indonesia still more than the global target, and it is projected linear trends. And then NCDs are estimated to account for 73% of all death. I think it is one of a big problem in our country and also in the world. In Indonesia, the NCDs in Indonesia are kidney disease, diabetes, and also hypertension, and it is increase from year to year. If we see from the basic health research Ministry of Health, the data 2013, if we compare the data 2013 and 2018, it is quite increased the prevalence of NCDs in Indonesia. We also facing with the malnutrition problem. It is also already addressed by previous speaker. Indonesia facing with stunting, undernutrition, and also overweight. So to address this problem, WHO already provide the guideline under the WHO 57.17 in the global strategy on diet, physical activity, and health. In this document, WHO already stated that 2 modifiable factors or behavioral risk factor that can address is unhealthy diet and physical inactivity. And in this document also mentioned that one of strategy to overcome or to address this problem is labeling. Labeling is one of strategy for NCD prevention and also to overcome the malnutrition problem. Because with the labeling can allow the consumers to be better informed about the benefit and content will make a choice. Furthermore, in the recommendation from the Commission on Ending Childhood Obesity, the RASIC recommendation, I only them. One of them is promote intake of a healthy food. In this recommendation, there are 3 points that are closely related with this issue. The first one is the recommendation is develop nutrient profiles to identify unhealthy food and beverages. And the second, implement a standardized global nutrient labeling system. And the third one, implement interpretative front of pack labeling. I think it is clearly guided in WHO, especially from the Commission on Ending Childhood Obesity. And furthermore, in more detail, in Global Action Plan to Prevention NCD, under Objective 1, it is already addressed that to reduce the risk factor for NCDs that stem from unhealthy diet and physical inactivity by means of essential public health action and health promoting and disease preventing measures. I think the policy or the action can be taken, can be focused on unhealthy diets and physical inactivity. In the same document under Objective 3, it is also mentioned that one of the policy options for member states to promote nutrition labeling according to, but not limited to, international standard, in particular the Codex Alimentarius. As we know, currently Codex developed, Codex already published the guideline on nutrition labeling, and currently Codex is being developed, the front of pack guideline, and is still in discussion. And for the Objective 3 of the WHO NCD action plan, it is already guide that develop guidelines, recommendation, or policy measures that engage different relevant sectors, such as food producers and processors and other relevant commercial operators, as well as consumers too. There are some efforts to reducing NCD modifiable risk factors, reduce the level of salt or sodium, increase the availability, affordability, and consumption of fruit and vegetables, reduce saturated fatty acid in food and replace them with unsaturated fatty acid, replace trans fats with unsaturated fats, and reduce the content of free and added sugars in food and non-alcoholic beverages. And the last, limit excess calorie intake, reduce portion size, and energy density of food. Next, I would like to move on what we have done based on the WHO recommendation. In our food law, Food Act year 2012, and our government regulation number 19 year 1999, it is already emphasized that one of scope of food administration is cover food label and advertisement. In the one article in that regulation already mentioned that the information as intended in the label is cover, not only cover about the origin, safety, and quality, but also about the nutritional content. I think it is already mentioned in our regulation. And in other technical regulation about the nutrition information panel in Indonesia, we have published regulation 2005. Previously, the nutrition information panel or nutrition labeling is still voluntary. It is only mandatory for certain food, for example, when a claim is made on the food label. And the nutrients that must be included is limited to total energy, total fat, protein, and carbohydrate, and sodium. And now in 2000, since 2019, we have revised our regulation. The nutrition information panel is mandatory for all prepackaged food. Since 2 years ago, we have applied mandatory nutrition labeling, and the nutrient that must be included not only total energy, total fat, protein, carbohydrate, and sodium, but also saturated fat and sugar. It is the update about our nutrition labeling regulation in Indonesia. And in this regulation, there is also the requirement on front of pack nutrition labeling. There are 2 types of front of pack nutrition labeling in this regulation. The first one is monochrome GDA, and the second one is healthier choice symbol or logo. On the next slide, I will share about how we develop the front of pack nutrition labeling. Why we develop a front of pack? I think it is also happened in another country. We conducted a survey on the implementation on food label regulation, in particular the implementation of nutrition information panel in 2015 and 2017. inputs were obtained from the customers, among others, that respondents wanted to be in a simple and easy to understand form. The current back-of-pack nutrition labeling is not easy to digest. It is the consumer said that it is more complicated and not simple. So it is needed to develop the front-of-pack nutrition labeling, and with that, guide the consumer that are simple, easy to see, and easy to understand in choosing food product. And with the front of pack, we hope provide information on healthier food choice to the consumers, and also encourage industry to carry out reformulation in providing healthier processed food. This is the two aims to in developing the front of pack nutrition labeling. And next, I would like talk about how we develop the nutrient profile and front of pack in Indonesia. I think we have a common understanding about what is a nutrient profile. Previous speaker already mentioned about the nutrient profiling. It is the science of classifying or ranking food according to their nutritional composition for reasons related to preventing disease and promoting health. Nutrient profiling can be used to make a policy, to implement public health strategies. For example, nutrient profiling can be used as a consideration to make a policy on marketing of food and non-alcoholic beverages to children. Nutrient profile can also be used to make a policy about the procurement of food in public institutions, and of course, nutrient profiling can be used as a requirement for front of pack nutrition labeling, as well as for health claim and in developing the fiscal policies, for example, taxation or subsidies. I think that is the use of nutrient profiling to develop the public health strategies or policies. In the world, there are various model or group of front of pack nutrition labeling. Can be grouped into two groups. For example, nutrient specific. It is cover a brief nutrition information, and the color can be shown about the content of the nutrient in the food. And the other group is criteria, and it is categorized with two set of criteria, a healthier choice symbol, and it is various symbol in some countries. And before deciding what type of front of pack can be used in Indonesia, we have conducted a survey on front of pack nutrition labeling in Indonesia. This survey is a collaboration with the IPB University, Indonesian FDA, and WHO. The result of the study also published in a journal. You can download on the journal. The survey involved respondents from industry and also from the consumers. We involve 117 food industries with customers both large and small medium enterprise. And we involve also 400 consumers to have the input of what is the suitable front of pack model fit with Indonesian situation. The methodology of the survey is for the company, for the food industry, we use the online questionnaire for industry, and for the consumer, we conducted interview in 5 cities in Jabodetabek, Jakarta, Bogor, Depok, Tangerang, Bekasi. And the result of the survey from the industry side, for the large industries, 38 around 38% prefer to use the GDA monochrome, and 1600 prefer to choose checklist or healthier choice logo. However, from the small medium industries, prefer to choose the checklist or healthier choice logo. It is around 30%, and 25% of them using traffic light with warning. And from the consumer side, the consumer prefer to choose checklist or healthier choice logo of 42% from the consumer, and 33% of them use the traffic prefer to choose traffic light with warning. Based on the survey, most of respondents choose a checklist or healthier choice logo as front of pack model Indonesia. Based on this survey, we develop the nutrient profiling to as a requirement to put the healthier choice logo in food label. In developing the nutrient profile, we did some steps. The first step is we determine the priority of food products, and the second we determine the nutrient criteria regulated in the nutrient profile, and the third step is consideration for cut-off value in nutrient profile, and the fourth is determine nutrient profile model. And for the priority of food product, we focus on ready-to-consume food and food that needs simple reconstitution or only addition of water. But for the maybe for the raw material or for intermediate food product have not covered in as a priority of food product to develop the nutrient profiling. We take into account the data from the individual food consumption survey to determine what category of food product to develop the nutrient profiling. Based on the survey, for example, the intake of sugar is come from the beverages and drink. That is the reason why, for the first step in developing the nutrient profile, beverages, ready to drink beverages, is one of food product as a first step. As a first step, we develop the nutrient profiling. We also consider the registered food products in the market, and we choose a priority list. What kind of product will we develop the nutrient profiling? And in determining the nutrient criteria, we focus on this total fat, saturated fat, sodium, and total sugar. I think it is also a concern in other country, sugar, and also addressed in WHO recommendation about the consumption of sugar, salt, and sodium. Those nutrient we use in developing nutrient profiling. We also consider the positive nutrient as well as dietary fiber and calcium as a part of nutrient profiling. And next step is how we determine the cut-off value. How many nutrient, how many salt, how much salt in the food product can be allowed so that the food product can put the front of pack or healthier choice symbol in the label. We consider the nutrient code intake goals and also the RDA or NRV in Indonesia. We also taking into account the serving size of selected food categories and the nutrient content of selected food categories. We also take into account the claim requirements and also the basic characteristic of food categories. Based on those considerations, we developed the nutrient profile model and we set a threshold for nutrient criteria and we don't use scoring because using the threshold is easier to be implemented by industry and also it's simpler to evaluation or to monitor. So we use the threshold for the nutrient criteria in our nutrient profiling. And based on those steps, for the first step, and it is already regulated in our regulation, the first step food category that already developed the nutrient profiling are ready-to-drink beverages, which cover all ready-to-drink beverages, include flavored drink, milk beverage, milk fermented beverage, chocolate drink, soybean beverage, fruit juice, vegetable juice, carbonated drink, and so on. And the requirement or nutrient profiling for this category is only the limitation of sugar. The requirement is if the products contain maximum 6 grams sugars per 100 milli, the product can may put the healthier choice symbol on the label. The sugars means all mono and disaccharide and exclude lactose. And we also prohibit to use sweetener to replace sugar only for front of pack a healthier choice. It doesn't mean sweetener is not allowed. Yeah. Sweetener is allowed to put in food category on certain amount, but for front of pack healthier choice, the sweetener is not allowed. And the second group is pasta and instant pasta and noodles, and the requirements are of fat and sodium. Maximum fat in the food product no more than 20 gram per 100 gram, and for sodium no more than 900 milligram per 100 grams. I think that is our current nutrient profiling for two groups of food product. If the food product fulfill the requirement and they can put a healthier choice symbol on the label. As I mentioned here, already regulated in our current regulation and is still applied voluntarily for the healthier choice symbol and also for GDA format. And currently, I think some products already use healthier choice logo in some food products. And for the next step, we expand other food categories. Now we are developing nutrient profile in some food categories. For example, for powdered milk, flavored milk powder, cheese, ice cream, yogurt, flavored yogurt, chocolate, cereal drink, oatmeal, breakfast cereal, granola, crackers, and milkies, cakes, cookies, biscuit, wafer and pie, snacks, processed nut, and others. And nutrient profiling for those food categories that we explored earlier.
Miss Yusra, are you last 2 minutes?
Oh, okay. It is my last slide. I only would like to emphasize that for the next other food categories, we not only regulate the sugar, sodium, and fat content, but also cover the positive nutrient as well as dietary fiber and calcium, as you see on the screen for other food categories. And we expect this expansion can be published within this year. We have discussed about the nutrient profiling for those food categories. I think that's all our sharing about our experience in developing nutrient profiling and front of pack healthier choice regulation in Indonesia. Thank you, and back to you, Dr. Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rusha, for sharing your wonderful experience on nutrient profiling in Indonesia. I think she presented to us how scientific method is used and how different guidelines, the WHO guidelines and other guidelines available was used in their nutrient profiling, in the creation of their nutrient profiling. I also like the way that they ask the consumers on or different sectors on what seal or what feature of the seal to be used for the nutrient profiling. Okay, so we are now in our Q&A question. Please, for those who have questions, please write your question in the Google form link. The question or opinion should be brief and concise. Okay. First question, this question is for Dr. Misra. So how do we know, this question is from the Philippines, from Miss Mimbela. How do we know the efficacy of having FOPL if most of the people aren't that health conscious or choose to ignore the FOPL and or nutrient facts labels of a product? And then number two, what are the impacts shown in having an FOPL granted for food products?
Thank you very much, Madam Gifta Nina. First, let me address the first question. How do we know the efficacy of having an FOPL? There have been some studies which have shown that FOPL does have an impact. And I think the Chilean study and a few other studies and impact assessment studies have been done, but they're still remote and we need to do more such studies. Having said that, I did mention that FOPL alone may not have an impact on addressing double burden of malnutrition either ways. So it has to be conducted in tandem across the other strategies to address DBM. So hope I have answered that part. But it's a very good question because we need to conduct more such impact studies in order to find out the purchasing behavior of these products with front of pack labeling. So that can actually give us some insight whether there is awareness amongst the people and whether they're making the right choices. Hope I've answered the first question. The second one was, sorry, I just missed the second question. If you could repeat it.
The second question is on, what are the impacts shown in having this FOPL granted for food products?
Okay.
I think
it is more or less similar to the first question. Again, the efficacy and impact has to be done through monitoring and evaluation and impact assessment studies. But again, it cannot be done singled out, but we can study through the food purchase behavior. That will give us more insight on the impact as well as on the efficacy. And also the other component could be the purchase, the food preferences amongst the children in schools. That can be done when such kind of products with having the front of pack labeling is either sold in the school premises or offered to students to select the food items. So there are various ways of doing it. Probably we could discuss this later. You could write to me and then we could take this further as well. Thank you.
Can I have a follow-up, Dr. Misra? So if we're going to, what's the most important challenge that you've experienced, particularly in this nutrient profiling? I think you did so much work on this, but what do you think is the most important challenges that you've encountered?
One of the more, I wouldn't say there is a challenge, but I would say it is the acceptability.
Okay.
There are a few criteria which is available and which you can always adopt. The reason for why I say that it is a challenge for adapting it, because in Asian region, so the 5 countries that I have shown you have already adapted and they have developed their own criteria. So it is adaptable. I do not see any roadblocks in adapting it, but if we put it as a policy measure, it can be used across various segments by using the same criteria. You don't need to have different criteria for different measures.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Okay, since the slide is not yet in, Ms. Rusya, what incentives do you provide to the industry partners, particularly for those who have who voluntarily use your the FOPL?
Actually, until now there is no incentive for the industry, but as you know, in Indonesia we have the pre-market approval for those for industry that already apply the front of pack or healthier choice voluntarily. I think we can accelerate the approval number for the company that already use the front of pack and nutrition labeling voluntarily. I think that is one of incentive that can be given to the food industry.
Thank you very much. This is the question for Mr. Magnalang from India, Dr. Padmanabhan. Have the criteria for NPM of complementary foods been decided? Will it be based on WHO NPM for infants and young children?
Yeah, as I have presented in my in the presentation, that complementary foods, certain criteria have been developed for complementary foods. The choices criteria has included some possible complementary foods, such as soups, juices, as well as those foods, milk products are included in the choices criteria, and those are based on the WHO nutrient profile model for infants and young children. So that's how choices has developed their own criteria, including those products that I have mentioned.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question, please. Next question. Okay. Ms. Yusra, okay. This is from Laras. This is for Mrs. Yusra. What efforts have been done by Indonesian government to encourage food industry in having healthier choice logo? And what are the challenges faced during its processes?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the first step that we have been done is survey to support the front of pack nutrition, which one is the suitable from Indonesian situation, and to encourage the industry, we involve the food industry in developing nutrient profiling, as well as in developing the food regulation. And with that, we hope food industry can reformulate their food product to have the nutrient profiling fixed with the requirements. And what are the challenges? I think there are some challenges faced during process. For example, to develop the cut-off value, I think it is not easy to develop a cut-off. For example, for sugar in ready-to-drink beverages, there is some challenges from the food industry. They still propose to allow to add the sweetener because the food companies still worry about the preferences of the consumer, because Indonesia consumers still prefer a sweet taste. So they propose to BPOM why Indonesia not allow the sweetener to put on the food on the beverages when they want to put the FOP on. The challenge is also to determine the nutrient, the type of the nutrient. For example, in our discussion now, for example, for the milk product, whether we only limit the fat, or whether we also include sodium, something like that. And for example, for cheese as well, the company proposed why not we only limit the fat. As we know, in Indonesia, the cheese, the content of salt in cheese is quite high. Yeah? So one of a requirement for nutrient profiling for cheese, we propose to limit the sodium as well. I think that is the challenges in process, in discussion, to develop a nutrient profile, to determine the type of nutrient, and also to determine the cut-off value. I think it is quite challenging in the process. I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Yusra. Any other question? Next question, please. Okay, this is for Dr. Misra. What are the choices criteria healthiest products for school? This is from Juliana from Indonesia.
Okay, if I can understand your question, it is very difficult to tell you at this point of time what are the criteria. The criteria is already set. Based on the criteria, if the product complies to that criteria, then they can be selected for school. For example, if the criteria says that not more than 400 milligrams of sugar of salt, then we have to restrict. We have to check those foods which comply with this cutoff point for sodium, and only those products can be sold within the school premises. And that is the reason why the 5 key elements, which is sugar, salt, the total fat, saturated fats, all these has to be taken into consideration before identifying the products which are eligible to be enrolled for the school lunch program. Hope I have answered your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Misra. Next question. Okay, this is from Ade from Indonesia to Mr. Magnalang. Is there any country which has successfully developed its policy on healthy food choices, especially for school children and adolescents? How flexible is that policy to be implemented in Southeast Asian context?
Well, as I've said earlier, in school, the Philippines, as I know of, has already this policy on healthy food choices that can be sold in schools. So we have those guidelines, and it has been. I have also informed that in some of our colleague in Africa, and they said they will try to use it also, and hopefully this can be expanded and be informed of other for the within the ASEAN region of this policy on healthy food choices in the schools. So, on considering that we did not have any lead country who could be coordinating this project, as I've said, we have started in choices the criteria of certain products initially as a pilot for, let's say, breakfast cereals as well as in beverages to see the coherence among the ASEAN countries to agree on a certain criteria for these products and eventually be adopted within the ASEAN region. So, this is just in a pilot and hopefully can be expanded later on with other products, initially to be adapted for these products and eventually be expanded to other products. And that pilot is being coordinated by choices. So hopefully that can be expanded and the report on this will be out hopefully within the next quarter.
Thank you, sir. Okay, last question. For all the other questions which were not answered, so we're going to give it to our distinguished speakers so that they could answer your questions. Do we have our last question? Okay. Give this for Mrs. Yusra. Given a situation where some people are well aware of this nutrition tool, the FOPL, but have a low diversity score in diet diversity score questionnaire, what can nutritionists do about this? From Nina Mimbela from the Philippines.
Thank you. I think that is the very hard question. Maybe for the nutritionists, I think education is one of effort to give the awareness for the FOPL, and we also can consider the diversity of score in diet diversity score. So I think education is one of effort to address the awareness. I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to all our speakers. Let us give them a round of applause for providing us the information that we need on nutrient profiling, on FOPL, and at the same time, the ASEAN Food and Nutrition Plan and how nutrition profiling could be implemented or integrated in the plan. So I think at the end of the day, the consumers, right? We as consumers, we have to decide if we're going to choose what we want or based on our preference, based on our nutrition knowledge, or based on our culture, or based on our gut, based on how we feel. But at the end of the day, if we know that the government has a policy on this, I think it is also it should also be known. It should also be promoted, and the people should be educated on it, so that the impact of these innovations could be felt. Okay, thank you very much to all our speakers, and I'm going back the screen or the screen to our MC. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Leila. What a very fruitful webinar. Okay, before we end the webinar, Dr. Judy requests to have a quick photo together. Should we? Okay, so please, everyone can turn on the camera.
The camera is.
Okay, I will count to 3.
Okay.
It's not in yet.
Wait.
Oh, not yet. Okay.
Okay.
Judy's camera is not in.
Yeah. Ibu Judy.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. So this is the mark the end of our webinar. I do hope we all are gaining some knowledge from this webinar. Once more, I remind you, don't forget to fill the evaluation form to get the certificate. Also, don't forget to subscribe SEAMEO RECFON YouTube channel and follow our social media. Again, thank you very much and see you again in another webinar. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hooray.
Bye. Okay, thank you.
See you in August.
Yeah, August. Also with, I think, with